And welcome to The Ring, Euronews' debate show broadcast from the European Parliament here in Strasbourg. Once a week, two elected members of the European Parliament step into the ring to defend their views on the most pressing issues facing Europe. Today, we're once again focusing on the US and Israel's war against Iran. Is the EU prepared to deal with the economic fallout of a prolonged war? And could this trigger a radical change in the EU's place in the world?
As the war in Iran enters its second week, the shockwaves are reaching Europe. The conflict is raising urgent questions about the EU's energy supply, security, and role on the global stage. The first impact is visible in energy markets. Oil prices surged over $100 a barrel for the first time in 4 years. For Europe's export-driven economies, a prolonged conflict could translate into slower growth and renewed financial volatility. The crisis is also testing Brussels' relationship with the Trump administration. Will European governments align more closely with Washington? Meanwhile, security concerns for Europe's southeastern region are mounting. Several EU nations have sent warships to bolster the defenses of Cyprus, an EU island nation which has already been caught in the crossfire. Where does Europe stand in this crisis? Will it remain largely defensive, managing the fallout of a conflict it cannot control, or attempt a more offensive role?
Just some of the questions we have for our contenders today. Let's meet them.
Antonio López Istúriz, a Spanish MEP from the centre-right European People's Party. A lawyer by training, he has been an MEP since 2004, and he sits on the Committee on Foreign Affairs at the European Parliament. Commenting on international security challenges, he has stressed the importance of strengthening cooperation among democratic partners. In the context of the escalation in the Middle East, he said, "Given Iran's support for terrorism, its nuclear ambitions, and its regional aggression, the West cannot remain passive." Daniel Attard, a Maltese MEP from the Socialists and Democrats group. A lawyer by training, he was elected to the European Parliament in 2024, where he's vice chair of the delegation for relations with Iran. Commenting on the war in Iran, he said, "There are serious legal questions about this military operation, but we must not lose sight of where the root causes of this crisis lie. The Iranian regime has for decades destabilized the region, sponsored militias, and repressed its own people. I would advocate for hard diplomacy. Europe should lead talks toward de-escalation. Diplomacy should always prevail."
MEPs Antonio López Istúriz and Daniel Attard, welcome to The Ring. So, the idea here is to give our viewers at home a little taste of the debates that happen here in the European Parliament, so I'm sure you both will feel just at home. Let's get started. I will start with you, Antonio. We're in the second week of this war. There's really no signs of this abating right now. Are you any clearer now on what the end goals of both the US and Israel are here?
Well, I don't think that we don't have the information, none of us, not even people at charge here in the European Union, about what's going on. Should be another way. I think that also the European Union is losing a little bit, let's say, the initiative to be there, you know, in order to also help. Our motto nowadays, and the European flag represents precisely principles, values, and that's what we have to work with, and we have to collaborate. But we are not really in the decision-making at worldwide situation, at the geopolitical situation today.
Okay, you mentioned those European values. I think the EU is also built on this concept of international law and respect for the rules. You've said, Daniel, that this initial strike from the US and Israel that triggered the war was not in line with international law. So is it right now that the EU, as Antonio says, does more to support the US and Israel in this war?
The EU should stand up for its values. As my colleague has said, our mission is clear, in my opinion. We should, first of all, push for de-escalation, build a path towards a return to diplomacy, protect our citizens and our interests in the region, and we should also stand firm with the long struggle of the Iranian people for freedom and dignity. Because, as I said, there are serious questions on the legality of this military operation, but we should not lose sight of the historical context of the Iranian regime, how the crisis unfolded over the past decades, not just over the past 15 days.
Okay, but let me put this to you. Is the war so far doing anything to help the Iranian people?
The Iranian regime has been for years building up its nuclear capacity. Its moments to become military-grade uranium also has been sponsoring terrorist attacks all over the world for years. I think it's also about time that Iran and the regime learns about also principles and values. And sometimes we have to be strict on this.
But we've seen the supreme leader being replaced by his son. So if it is regime change that the US and Israel are pursuing, it doesn't seem that that's working so far. Do you think it's right to pursue regime change from the skies?
I think it should be a joke to say that we have a regime change when the son takes from the father. Let's say a sad joke, because these people have killed thousands, specifically also women that were fighting for the freedoms in Iran. We cannot escape that reality. So also we have to fight for our principles and values, fighting these kind of regimes. And for them to change, and also to have, and I agree with Daniel, that we give the Iranian people the opportunity also to take the future for themselves, for a democratic future in Iran. I am sure that him and I, and many in this parliament, we agree. There was a resolution 2 weeks ago about Iran, only 9 votes against from the extreme right. The rest of the parliament was absolutely agreeing. I had the pleasure, the honor of being the chief negotiator of this resolution, and that was the image of this parliament united for that purpose.
So there's consensus on that, on the brutality of the Iranian regime and the need for the EU to support the pro-democracy, pro-freedom movement. But a socialist voice in Europe, Pedro Sánchez, the Prime Minister of Spain, has also been very firm in calling for restraint and this message of no to war. Do you stand with his message?
Pedro Sánchez spoke for the upholding of international law. And I believe in this House we all stand for international law, international order and multilateralism.
What do you make, both of you, of the response from the EU institutions? Who speaks on behalf of the EU when it comes to this conflict? Maybe we can start here.
Listen, the European Parliament has been clear and consistent. We have been calling for the designation of the IRGC as a terrorist organization for at least 3 years. 3 years, repeating our call for this designation, and it took the Council 3 years to align with the Parliament's position. So this institution, where we stand today, has been clear and vocal, but we lack the unanimity as a European Union.
Yes, but if I may, there is an all-out war happening, affecting Europe, shockwaves in terms of energy prices, economic fallout, and so on. Now that there is a war happening, who speaks for Europe? Do you think that it should be von der Leyen, for example? Should it be
clearly
Kaja
it's not Pedro Sánchez. And let me point that, because he is now in the, let's say, pre-electoral process in Spain. And it's not good to mix things and to give rhetorics like the no to war. I mean, we don't want wars. No one wants. But to use it, for internal purposes, now more than ever, we have to be united. There has not to be any discordant voices. We have to, and maybe what Pedro Sánchez should do is come to the Council, agree with the prime ministers, even from Malta, from Germany, everybody, and we have a common position. That's how things are done in this European Union, and at least he should respect that.
Can you give him credit for at least being very firm, in the sense that other EU leaders seem to be treading this very fine line between condemning the Iranian regime, supporting some kind of change in the regime and the toppling of the regime, but yet not really standing very clear on what it makes of this US-Israeli intervention? Isn't treading this fine line in the middle making the EU irrelevant here?
No. Now, more than ever, we need that single voice. We don't need voices spread around in this European Union, because that's what everybody is asking from us. If we want to be really an actor on the ground in many areas where, again, the European Union with its principles and values can contribute also to alleviate the effects of what's going on.
And on that, because we are seeing a big impacts in terms of oil prices already, should the EU be doing more to be more proactive here, to anticipate the possible impact on European citizens?
We have been saying this from across the chamber for weeks, months, and also years. We have to build our strategic autonomy, be it economically, be it in terms of energy, be it in terms of security. Strategic autonomy does not mean that we are being hostile to the US. but it will actually strengthen the strategic partnership. But strategic partnership does not have to mean strategic dependence. So yes, to answer your question, we have to do more to be more autonomous, to be able to shape future events rather than simply react to them as we have been doing, not just in this crisis, but also when it comes to the war in Ukraine and other conflicts around the world.
But does that mean drastically reducing the reliance on the US when it comes to Europe's defense?
As I said, building our strategic autonomy does not mean weakening our strategic partnerships.
Maybe a final response to that?
Strategic autonomy means inside the systems where we are, the structures where we are, NATO, United Nations, that we have Europeans together, we have a single voice, again, not dispersed voices on electoral purposes, but a single voice in these structures, that we react as, and also we are working with our allies. Who are our allies? Democratic countries. That might be perfect or imperfect. Maybe they have not elected the president we wanted, or yes, but they are democracies.
Okay,
and we have to be patient, like they are also with us sometimes, I have to say.
Let me stop you there. I see we're getting warmed up here in the debate, but it's now time to move on to the second round. It's time for our contenders to directly challenge each other. They've come here today armed with their own questions for their opponent. So let's hear them, and let me start with you, Daniel. Your first question to Antonio.
So, Antonio, we have been talking about strategic autonomy, but does that mean that we have to align with decisions taken by others across the region, across the Transatlantic?
Not to follow, and I'm sure that we should agree, not to follow, but to be in the decision-making and also contributing with our European values in that decision-making. Maybe we could do a difference. My maybe autocritic is that maybe the Europeans, we are not soon enough in places where decisions are taken. These are the opportunities that we cannot miss.
Antonio, your first question to Daniel.
Again, our allies. I talked about our allies. Daniel, what do you think? I mean, should we stay, also with them? They are democratic countries. Should we go in another way? What's your view on this?
So you're talking about the Gulf countries and the US, I'm assuming?
Yes, of course. And Israel, by the way, also.
And Israel.
As I said, we should first of all invest in our strategic autonomy so that we are able, as a European Union, to speak with one voice and to shape events rather than simply react to them as we have been doing. But we should also, yes, work with our allies closely. Let's speak about the transatlantic allegiance, the elephant in the room. The EU and the US share decades of strategic partnership, and I believe that strategic partnership will outlast any single crisis. I believe that beyond political rhetoric, that strategic alliance will outlast this war, and we can building on that while also building our own strategic autonomy.
As a product of a transatlantic relation that I am, my mother's American, I have to say, I agree absolutely.
Good, very good. Daniel, your second question to Antonio.
So my question is this. Would you think, speaking of the Iranian people, we said that they now have the hope for freedom and for dignity, something which they long have been fighting for. But do you think that their future can be decided by foreign powers or by missiles dropping in their country?
No. And we said it before, you and me. I think that we agree. And by the way, you are an expert. You are in the Iranian delegation here in the European Parliament, and I have been passionately involved in the fight against this regime. By the way, I'm in the blacklist of the regime. To tell you that, we have to join efforts in order to tackle with this regime, that we have to be prudent also in the way that the Iranian people feel our support, and they feel it in a way that they can race against this regime. They have done it before. Remember, just this Christmas, there were 6,000 people killed in the streets of Iran because of that. We need to be to them, and we have to give them the clear messages of our support.
But very briefly, if I may, just to push further on that question, do you think that this war is actually helping and sending that signal from the West, the signal that you've just spoken about to the Iranian people?
I think that the willing also to change the regime in Iran is maybe giving this support, this help to the Iranian people. It's soon to know. We don't know what's going on in the streets. There is a internet blackout. There is no communication. We don't know, Daniel, me, and anyone here, what's going on in the streets of Tehran or Isfahan.
Okay.
But we wish and we want the Iranian people to feel our support, not only for resolutions, but also with action.
Okay, we have time for a very last question from you, Antonio, to Daniel.
Yes. Sanctions, Daniel, because I just heard the president of the socialist group, Irache Garcia, talking about, that we need more sanctions to asphyxiate the regime. Do you think that we have done enough or not in the European Union? I mean, this is a question that we all members have in the different groups.
I think that the Parliament has done its job. It has been consistent, but we definitely have to do more. We need hard diplomacy. We need to increase the pressure on the regime. We still have embassies operating like business as usual in the European Union. I think we should take action on that. And also, obviously, we need the Council to be more fast. Because as we have seen, political hesitation carries consequences.
Okay, thank you both for your own questions there. But it's time now to bring new voices into the debate. Now, earlier this week, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen delivered a speech pitching a new way forward for the EU in the way it does foreign policy. Let's listen to what she had to say and also the reaction from her own Vice President, Teresa Ribera.
Europe can no longer be a custodian of the old world order. For a world that has gone and will not return. We will always defend and uphold the rules-based system that we helped to build with our allies. But we can no longer rely on it as the only way to defend our interests.
It is fair to say that maybe it was not the most adequate manner to express herself. But yes, she is fully committed, of course, to the international order. But to me, it is key to defend, to stress, to underline that international law is a key element of building the European project and the European security. The large majority of countries around the world think that this is the best thing we have done since the end of World War II, but it is absolutely key for Europe.
Antonio, is von der Leyen right? Does the EU need to change the way it does foreign policy?
It's a little bit sad, no, to see the Vice President of the Commission receiving phone calls from the Prime Minister of Spain and introducing his agenda. I don't think that, in the declarations of Ursula, I don't see the agenda of anyone except the European one. When she said we cannot set a tier for the regime, I think that we can all agree, with this approach.
Well, we do have a socialist here on set. You belong to the same political family as Rivera, of course, and the Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez. What do you make of that?
I think that beyond the political rhetoric with an upcoming election in Spain, what Pedro has said is he stood up for international law, for what we stand for in this House. But it also shows the beauty of this House, that we can have different opinions, but we can also agree on the basics.
But
and to be clear, international crises rarely offer simple answers. But complexity does not have to mean moral blindness.
Okay,
that is clear.
What von der Leyen is saying that, continuing with the same agenda is naive because the world around us is changing. Do you agree with her in that, there needs to be more pragmatic, interest-based approach to the EU's foreign policy?
I'm all for a pragmatic-based approach, but we have to be able also to speak with one voice when it comes to what we stand for, our values, the rule of law, international order. And we must also be able to condemn the killing of innocents, like the children, the school children which were killed innocently in Iran.
Was the timing of her speech right, would you say?
The speech of von der Leyen?
Of von der Leyen, when she casts a little bit of a doubt on the strength of the EU's kind of commitments to the rules-based order. She said that EU can no longer be a custodian of that rules-based order.
I wouldn't subscribe to that. I think that as a European Union, we should be strong and standing up for our values, because that is the core foundation of why this union was founded after the Second World War.
Okay, let me stop you there because it's time for us to take a short break here on The Ring, but stay with us. We'll be back very soon. Welcome back to The Ring, Euronews' new weekly debate show. I'm joined by MEPs Daniel Attard and Antonio López Istúriz to discuss the US and Israel's war with Iran and the ripple effects felt in Europe. The conflict has, of course, caused the effective closure of the Strait of Hormuz. Let's take a look at why that matters for Europe. As you can see there, around 20% of the world's oil passes through the strait. Major exporters of energy include Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Iraq and Iran. And why does this matter for Europe? Well, about 13% of EU oil imports are transited through Hormuz. And of course, this is why there is growing concern here in Europe about the potential impact on prices and on consumers' pockets. I should also note that the US is now saying it has eliminated Iranian mine-laying ships in the strait. Also, the International Energy Agency is proposing the largest ever oil release from strategic reserves. So the situation is obviously evolving quickly. Do we need to see a more proactive response from the EU here? Because we could see a big impact on European consumers.
I think what this tells you is that the Iranian regime is at its weakest. Why? Because while 13%, as you quoted, of the EU's imports come from that strait, but 100% of Iranians' export pass through that strait. So this is a suicidal decision by the Iranian regime, which is in dire straits and which is at its weakest. And by appointing another Khamenei to the role of supreme leader, it tells you all you need to know about this regime. The time of this regime is up. I've said it before and I say it again.
Your response?
For once, Macron is right when he sent the aircraft carrier to Cyprus and, he's taking the frigates and also talking about the European defense of the Strait of Hormuz. It's not only about oil and gas. It's also our allies in the region. Gulf countries like the United Arab Emirates. There are full thousands of European citizens working every day there. It's also a hub for millions of Europeans that they fly to other continents. It is a very attractive place, and they have done it, and they have approached us during these latest years. So we need to be by them. They are suffering the indiscriminate attacks from the regime. I think that the Europeans, we have to be very clear on that.
And very briefly, EU leaders will be gathering in Brussels next week. Is there anything they should be doing now to prepare for a potential further spike in prices and the impact on the European economy?
Yes. We should be, as Macron has stated, and also Ursula. And I don't want to advance because I don't want to give a different opinion. I rely in all of them united. But my ask is that Europe is there, present for our allies in the region, in the Gulf, to protect them. Not only the oil and gas.
So it's about sending frigates to the region to patrol, to protect commercial vessels.
The Strait of Hormuz, it's worldwide. It's not only Europe. It's worldwide stability. And that's what we have to be there for.
The US is already doing this as well. We keep hearing, though, that this is not like 2022. This is not the crisis that we saw back then, the energy crisis when Russia invaded Ukraine. Do you think it's naive to say that the EU needs to be more kind of proactive here, for example, in anticipating the possible impact on electricity prices?
As I was saying from the start of this debate, we must be more strategically autonomous, not to react to future crises, but to be able to shape them.
What does that mean? Does it mean more nuclear? Does it mean more green energy?
What I wanted to say is that very well connected. Ukraine, what's going on in the Middle East, these are warning calls, wake-up calls for us Europeans, that we are surrounded by regimes, that they don't like our way of living, our democracy. And now, Europeans, we are understanding that we have to do something about it. Of course, the question of energy is crucial. Europe is dependent on energy. We do not produce energy by ourselves. Enough for our powerful industry, for our jobs, also for our social structure. Yeah, but not enough. Unfortunately, not enough yet to sustain our system. So we have to do something about it.
Do you support what von der Leyen said earlier this week about more nuclear energy, going back to that?
Well, I just discovered, as you know, and all of us, that, now it's a green energy, by the way, recognized by the European institutions and by the European Parliament. So
yes,
good for that.
Very briefly, just to close, do you think this should really propel efforts to invest more in either nuclear or green energies?
100%. We should diversify to ensure that we are independent as much as possible.
Okay. Now it's time to move on to our fifth and final round today. In our very last round of debate, I will ask you a set of very short questions, and I do require a very short answer, yes or no.
Referendum.
Yes or no, if possible. Let's start here with you, Daniel. Do you support the US and Israel's war on Iran?
International complexities do not offer simple answers.
No, yes or no, then?
There are serious questions about the military operation, but it has brought us the closest to bring about a change in the regime.
Okay. Do you support the war, yes or no?
If there are, ways to take out this regime in Iran, that we are many. We have prayed for that for many years. Good. Is that the way? I don't know. We'll see now.
Let's see if we get shorter on the second one. Do you believe the war can be a success for the West?
You are making our life hard, to answer yes or no.
I can see.
It is definitely a wake-up call, and with dubious intentions, there could be good outcomes.
Okay.
Wars are not successful, never. And especially when they are started by someone that is building out their nuclear capacities to end us.
Let me give you an easier one. Is the war a threat to European security? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Is the war that Donald Trump, but specifically Donald Trump himself, a threat to European security? Yes or no?
The transatlantic relation has been a strength, not a threat.
Is Donald Trump a threat?
Transatlantic relation. Whoever is the president, I have had relations with Democrats, Republicans, whatever it is, you can like it or not, but we have to work on that.
Is the EU currently too reactive and not proactive enough in its response to the war?
Yes.
Is the EU too reactive and not proactive enough in its response?
Yes.
And is the crisis, would you say, a test of Europe's geopolitical credibility?
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Okay. And that brings this edition of The Ring to an end. Thank you so much to our guests today, MEPs Antonio López-Istúriz and Daniel Attad. Thank you also to you at home for watching. We'll be back next week with another head-to-head. In the meantime, write to us with your suggestions at thering@euronews.com, and see you soon here on Euronews.